the roles changed when the new president at that point came on. So Justice Garland never was confirmed, and the country's lucky to have him as an attorney general. He's a brilliant guy.
Oh, yes.
And a nice man, a real nice guy. So I just wanted to update, since we're in a new administration, new day and age, so to speak, I wanted to just update us a little bit and have some discussions on what's it looking like for veterans and our country as it is.
Yes.
Well, first we start with the first black Secretary of Defense, which is a wonderful thing, Lloyd Austin. And what a tremendous guy this is. He's 67 years old, very low-key. You didn't hear about General Austin much before he was actually nominated and confirmed. By the way, he's confirmed 97 to 2. And my understanding is, of course, Josh Hawley, that senator out of Missouri, was one of the two that decided not to vote for his confirmation. It was 93 to 2, actually, and the other was a fellow from Utah. Everybody else voted for him and confers confirmation. This is a fellow who spent his life in the career as military. And I also found it interesting, and before the show started, there was the news flash on this, that he has not spent 7 years in civilian ranks. And in order to become the Secretary of Defense, you have to be out of the Army, or the military, I should say, for 7 years, because they want a civilian kind of managing thing as a balance. Under the Trump administration, there was a waiver for their Secretary of Defense, and they did the same thing for General Austin, which is probably a good thing. I mean, you have been a veteran, and our listeners are veterans, know that the experience that you have bringing into the Defense Department is really huge. I think the theory was that they didn't want defense people running the defense show, that they wanted some balance, but certainly this fella was wonderful. He was graduated West Point, became the commanding general of the U.S. forces in Iraq. He oversaw the transition from Operation Iraqi Freedom to Operation New Dawn. Then he became Army Vice Chief of Staff, and then he became the United States Central Command commander. So this is a very well-versed person in the military. And then after he left the military, about, I think it was 5 years ago, he joined the board of Raytheon Technologies and Tenet Healthcare, and has been at it ever since. So we're lucky to have him, I think. And that's, as you know, there's been a lot of how do I say it, of change under the last administration. Not a lot of stability, a lot of firings and everything else. So it's good to see that we've reached that. Now, the other person is not confirmed yet, but the president has nominated Dennis McDonough, and this is important to our listeners because he's Biden's VA secretary pick. And this is a guy, this administration, the VA, Veterans Administration, and has a $240 billion budget. It's like, it reminds me of Austin Powers. This is $240 billion, and it's a lot of money. Now, this is a guy, though, that has had no military experience. So we go sort of the exact opposite of what we just talked about with General Austin. Dennis McDonough has had really no experience per se, but he has been involved under the Obama administration in his transition team, and then he served as chief of staff of the National Security Council, and he became Obama's chief of staff in 2013. Now, he was instrumental in bridging the divides in Congress to get the Veterans Choice Act passed in 2014. And if you recall, we talked about the Veterans Choice Act.
Right.
Because back in the day, if you're a veteran, you have to go to the VA. You can't go to another doctor. Right. Now that's changed, and that's a huge change, a sea change, as I say, because it's very important for veterans to have their choice of who it is they want to go. So there's a little bit of controversy over this because, frankly, there's a large sexual assault scandal, as our producer Glenda knows, and has really fought for women's rights. The sexual assault scandal was terrible in the last couple of years. We know it. There's been some changes. There's been some action on that and laws to prevent this discrimination in the chain of command. Has to be notified immediately. But he's got to overtake that too. So that's going to be quite the thing. Also, what about the coronavirus vaccine? The general public, as you know, is having trouble. Now, we know people 65 and older have a right to get the vaccine. There's a very small supply considering the amount of people who need it. It's kind of like a seller's market right now. I mean, tremendous demand for this vaccine. Now, we talk about all of the veterans. The VA and the government is going to be paying for their vaccine. There is still no administration program. So McDonough's got to come in my mind, and sort of pick up the ball pretty quickly and get moving on this thing. So he's got that. Now, he's not confirmed yet. I think there might be a little pushback because he doesn't have any military experience per se, sort of like the opposite of what we expected to see in the Defense Department. But we'll see what happens. So that is something that we'll watch in the next couple weeks. The First Lady, the new First Lady, Jill Biden, she just named a director for the Military Families Program. Now, what's that? When Michelle Obama was First Lady, Jill Biden, who was the Vice President's First Lady, so to speak, at the time, and Michelle Obama, the First Lady, took a big step in trying to get military family support. Now, that's obviously different than the veterans themselves, and the veterans themselves obviously get the support through the VA, and there's this $240 billion budget, but what we don't see are the families of these veterans, the people who have to take care of their loved ones and who are dealing with all this traumatic stuff. I mean, we talked about last year about the suicide rate, with the veterans and how often veterans are going through this depression and suicide. And we talked about this, and these families need support to be able to deal with this. Well, Jill Biden, just started this new program. Actually resurrected it because for the last 4 years it hasn't seen anything. But she's launching joining forces to encourage members of the public and private sector to find ways, big and small, to support service members, veterans, their families, and their caregivers. It's focused on education, employment, and wellness. Now, how is it going to be funded? I think a lot of private contributions, and I think there's going to be, when we see fundraisers for these politicians, we're hopeful that this is what's going to happen. Now, I will say the last 4 years, tumultuous as they've been, we've seen a lot of changes since the time I've been sort of on with having the honor of being with you guys. There's been a lot of changes going on, and for the good for veterans and for the military people. And maybe that had something to do with Vice President Pence's son being in the military. Certainly, we know the Bidens, Hunter Biden, who passed away, was a military man. And if you notice, every time President Biden ends his speeches, said, and God bless the people in the military. People were serving. So, we're hopeful that over the course of the next few months, we'll see some major changes. One thing about the VA and the Veterans Administration per se is, for many years, and Doctor, I think you might have seen this, it was sort of stayed. It was like just from the 1950s to now, nothing really changed. And this last few years, we've seen some really good modernization, this Choice Act, many different things that have really kind of updated the system to put it into, the year 2020. I mean, so that's a good thing. Now I'd like to go to the other side of thing, and I like to talk about these newsworthy items for veterans. We have one where a lawyer was accused of stealing nearly $1 million from a veterans charity. Wow. So, when we have these charities, they're run, and many times they're not on the level. So you have to be careful. You might get a lot of telemarketing calls. Back in the day, we certainly did. We're selling garbage bags. We're selling light bulbs. These are veterans, and what they do is they establish these charities for veterans, and yet not more than 2% or 5% of the money goes to the veterans. Right. It's going to the administration of running the charity. Well, in this case, apparently, this particular lawyer stole $1 million. He was convicted of it. He was charged, at least, with felony larceny, and he was also sentenced in federal fraud charges to prison time to order to pay this particular lawyer $1.4 million in restitution to Fisher House Foundation in Connecticut, a chapter of a national charity that builds homes near veterans' medical centers where families can stay free while their loved ones undergo treatment. So it's sort of like Ronald McDonald, which is a wonderful organization. But this guy took money, said he was going to build these houses next to the veterans' hospitals so families could stay, and of course, stole the money. Not a good thing.
No.
We hope that Joe Biden's type of thing that she's doing is the same type of thing. It's not stealing, obviously, but she's trying to establish funds for stuff like that, to get houses to house people while their families or their loved one, the military veterans, are going through treatment. So I'm optimistic that maybe we'll see some privatization and some good money come in to do some good things for veterans. On a legal front, I came across an article where a retired soldier claimed ongoing trauma for online sales of poster of his combat service. So what does that all mean? Well, we have a situation in which this particular, when you're in battle, sometimes, and in doing service, sometimes they will take pictures of you. And in this case, they took a picture of Nicholas Giovanelli, and basically he sued Walmart and Amazon because they used his picture, kind of in service to advertise. We saw that with Michael Jordan, by the way, with Dominic's back in the day, where they used the likeness. But you can't do that. And if you wanted, you have 1 year in which to sue if somebody has used your likeness, and it happens more than you think. So I don't know if you have any questions, Doctor.
No, but that was really very, very informative, Steve. I wasn't aware of many of the things that you were talking about, and I think that that's something we really have to focus on, as veterans going forward, and making sure we have great attorneys like you who are keeping your finger on the pulse of what's really happening and what's really important to us. But, one of the things I was thinking about as you were speaking is that, and you really outlined it very well about how this new administration is coming in and how they're being positioned in different leadership roles. And how do you think that's going to affect, the people who are actually the workers within these agencies? Because before, from the past administration, a lot of people became disheartened. Some people even left the administration. So this maybe is giving a foreboding of things to come, where people will start getting more faith in the institution that they were serving in. A lot of people raised their hand to swear to protect the people that they're representing. So what kind of effect do you think that's going to have?
Well, I think it's going to have a great effect. The Transportation Secretary is the first openly gay man, and I got to tell you that if you recall, a tremendous amount of our CIA operatives and people left in the last administration. Right. My understanding is that they're trying to get them back, and there are means and methods in which they could recall them if they want to be recalled. And I think, Doctor, you pointed out perfectly that because of this reaching out and this diversity and the fact that he has gotten really good leaders, it seems, or is trying to get good leaders in place, that this is going to, bring back a lot of good people. And I think what we saw at the top was a talent drain of major proportion under the last administration. I mean, you saw a ton of people leave the services, the VA. You saw a ton of people leave the Department of Defense. Saw a ton of people leave the CIA. Yeah. I think that because of this, it's going to bring back, and I think it's a good thing. It's a great thing.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that all those people who honorably served, it's really a testament to the strength of our Constitution and even the resiliency. We went through a potential insurrection, recently. And it really shows that we are stronger than that, and we are stronger as a nation. And I'm so glad that you are, in the legal realm protecting those rights that we have as veterans, because those rights depend on the Constitution's solvency, right? And whether it's actually able to withstand such an insult over time.
Right. Well, and also, what we have to do as a nation is understand that, but for the people who serve, like yourself and Cliff, we don't have a nation. We don't have the democracy. And it was interesting to see the statistics that there were some veterans who were on the opposite side. In other words, part of the insurrection.
Right.
So, I guess there's some police officers that were part of the insurrection. I mean, but truthfully, the veterans have served this country, have made this democracy what it is, and have preserved this democracy. And Steve, we owe it. And during the next few months, we're going to see what type of laws are going to help veterans. We've seen a lot of changes that have come, but we're waiting for more.
Oh, but Steve, we're out of time, and I really, really appreciate you. We have got to have you back on again and again, because you are such an inspiration. You are a partner of us from virtually the beginning of this program, and you have been so supportive of veterans in many ways, even giving the information you're giving. So we are so happy to have you. Okay?
Thank you very much. Have a great day. Thanks.
Okay, thank you.